you like to hear this view. Yes, Keir Starmer is a complete traitor.
That's an outrageous and deeply irresponsible thing to say, and you should be ashamed of yourself for saying it.
Ashamed? You know who should be ashamed is Keir Starmer, actually.
What you've just seen is one of the most explosive moments of this entire debate. A sitting Prime Minister is being called a traitor live on air, and the response isn't a rebuttal, it's outrage. This is where the conversation stops being polite and starts revealing just how deep the divide really is.
I sense he is such an arrogant man, the Prime Minister. He blames everybody but himself. He blames Mandelson. He blames McSweeney. He wasn't told the truth. He wasn't on the ball. I think maybe he could stay because he's so arrogant.
Yeah, that's a great point, Ben. I do think that Starmer will, cling on by his fingernails, actually, over the course of the next few days. He is an incredibly arrogant figure. He never apologises sincerely for anything at all. He never takes full responsibility for his actions. No. This is a sinking Labour socialist government. It's the worst government in British history, in my view. Yet Starmer doesn't take any responsibility.
Worse than, I like Liz Truss, but worse than the chaos of Liz Truss's tenure?
Oh, miles better. Yeah.
Why is it worse than Truss?
Oh, significantly worse. I mean, Liz Truss, of course, was forced out by the establishment. Keir Starmer represents the socialist establishment in Britain. He's done his best to ruin the country. The UK looks like a banana republic, frankly, under Keir Starmer. And this whole Mandelson scandal is an absolute disgrace. It's a disaster. It's hugely damaging, of course, of Britain's image on the world stage.
Yeah. And
you have a Prime Minister who never accepts any kind of responsibility. So I expect he will try to hang on to power. He's the equivalent of the Robert Mugabe, I think, of British politics, basically.
Mugabe,
yeah.
wasn't Mugabe? I don't know. Was Mugabe responsible for killing loads of white South Africans?
Well, certainly the killing of a lot of white Zimbabwean farmers. Yeah.
Wow.
And of course, Starmer is not responsible to that level. But if you look at
talking about the sort of incompetence of the
if you look at the sheer I think dictatorial style of this Labour government, actually it borrows heavily from figures like Mugabe. Frankly, it's that bad. Yeah. It's absolutely awful. I'm looking forward to the end of this horrific Starmer regime. But then what replaces him, of course,
could be
the leadership
worse.
of the Labour Party could well be worse. I mean, socialism destroys everything in its path, and whoever replaces Keir Starmer, I fear, actually will be even worse. Angela Rayner, for example.
Nile Gardiner sets the tone early, accusing Keir Starmer of arrogance, failure, and refusing to take responsibility. The language is harsh, uncompromising, and it immediately puts Matthew Stadlen on the defensive.
Matthew, what's your take on this debacle?
Well, first of all, David sounded a little bit like the Grim Reaper there. I was surprised by the strength of his take coming from the Independent. The guy you've got in the studio there, Niles, I think, I mean, I don't know what his role is, Ben, on this show. Is it as a political commentator or as a comedian? Because if it's as a comedian, he's not very funny. I know Paul is a comedian. The problem is the chap sitting next to you in America just described Starmer as like Robert Mugabe. I mean, it's just hyperbolic. It's hyperbolic nonsense, and it offends.
I did address that, Matthew.
Well, you did, but you did because you accepted that Starmer isn't killing people. Listen, I don't think I agree with you that Starmer is arrogant. I think he made a big mistake. I think he made a big mistake by appointing Peter Mandelson. It was a mistake when he did it. It was a mistake last September when the scandal broke, and it's a mistake now. And I can see the logic of those who are saying, if Morgan McSweeney is resigning because he gave Starmer the bad advice, why isn't Starmer himself resigning? My answer to that is, I don't think it would be in the interests of the country for us to go through yet another leadership challenge, yet another Prime Minister make the same mistakes that the Tories did time and time and time again. Did anything get better in those dying years of those Conservative administrations? I would argue not. And by the way, I do agree with you, just on the analysis. I don't think Starmer is going to go. Not because he's arrogant, but because it's difficult, as you say, to get rid of a Labour Prime Minister, and there aren't obvious, suitable, at least at the moment, alternatives.
I've got a question for you, Matthew.
This is the second clash. Matthew tries to moderate the language, arguing the criticism has gone too far. Nile and Ben aren't interested in softening anything. They see this as accountability, not exaggeration.
Well, firstly, Matthew, good to see you, especially after your comments last week. And
what happened last week?
I have to say that, Matthew launched an attack on my comments about Keir Starmer. Let me repeat what I said about Keir Starmer last week. Keir Starmer, in my view, is not only a completely useless and incompetent Prime Minister, he's also a complete traitor. He has betrayed the British people. He's the most treacherous British Prime Minister that we've ever seen. And the Chagos deal, the Chagos surrender deal, is an act of complete betrayal and treachery. And in my view, Starmer actually should be put on trial by a future British government for treason against the British people. So I'll repeat all that for your benefit, Matthew, because I know how much you like to hear this view. Yes, Keir Starmer is a complete traitor.
That's an outrageous and deeply irresponsible thing to say, and you should be ashamed of yourself for saying it.
Ashamed? You know who should be ashamed is Keir Starmer, actually, for running Britain into the ground. He's an absolute disgrace. He's turned the British government into a banana republic, frankly. It's an absolute disgrace. And if anyone should be ashamed here, it's those individuals who are leading this appalling, useless, incompetent Labour government. Socialists destroy everything that they touch. And Keir Starmer is a perfect example of that. And I think, Matthew, you're living in a delusional parallel universe if you think that somehow Keir Starmer deserves to stay as British Prime Minister. He deserves to be booted out as soon as possible. Unfortunately, whoever replaces him, I think, in the Labour Party is going to be even worse, which is a damning indictment.
Well, Matthew, the last word to you before we move on.
Yeah, just very quickly, I'll repeat very briefly what I said earlier in the week.
This is the breaking point. The accusation of treason lands again, and Matthew responds emotionally, calling it irresponsible and disgraceful. The debate has fully shifted from policy to trust and betrayal.
The Labour government, and this was the case with the Tory government before it, were facing a judgment, not a binding judgment yet, by an international court, which would have meant that we had to give up the Chagos Islands, and to avoid having to do that and be able to continue having that strategically extremely important base that we share with the Americans, the Labour government did this deal, or is doing this deal, trying to do this deal with Mauritius. It is precisely for reasons of defending the realm and also at the same time abiding by international law, which, guess what, might be a bit unfashionable, but is still incredibly important to our great country that they are doing it. And to call our Prime Minister a traitor is disgusting and disgraceful. I repeat, you should be ashamed of yourself.
Matthew briefly tries to pull the discussion back to legal process and political stability, but the underlying argument hasn't been resolved, it's only been paused.
Matthew, nobody pays attention to anybody who's anybody now, any nation who is serious, they pay no attention to international law. America doesn't, Saudi doesn't, any high and mighty nation, they don't give a fig. Following international law, which is non-binding as well, this ruling on Chagos, is for the birds. So Starmer had a choice about Chagos. He is intent. And by the way, if you don't think the whole Chagos deal stinks, Starmer's best mate, Philippe Sands KC, representing Mauritius, the Chagosian Prime Minister who was arrested with not only briefcases full of cash, literally, like out of a film, blank British visas. Has anybody answered what that's about, by the way, as well? A suitcase full of blank British visas.
So the Tories and Labour are somehow in some sort of conspiracy, Ben. The Tories and Labour are somehow conspiring. Successive governments are conspiring against our national interests. That's absolute rubbish. It's a conspiracy theory. It's nonsense.
Tell me what you think the visas are about.
Never heard of the visas point. All I understand and believe is that this government, like the previous government, I was no fan of the previous government, is trying to work in this country's best interests. And you want us to become like Saudi Arabia? Right. Good for you. I don't want to live in Saudi Arabia. I want us to uphold British standards, and part of that is abiding by international law.
British standards. Starmer's giving away a British overseas territory to a Chinese puppet Mauritius. thanks to an advisory ruling from a kangaroo court that had a Chinese judge on it, and you think this is somehow dignified for Great Britain?
We've got to move on.
It's
We've got to move on. Matthew, in the break, go on Google the Chagosian Prime Minister who was nicked with not only briefcases full of cash, but blank British visas shortly before President Trump took power.
This wasn't just a heated panel debate, it was a snapshot of why public trust in politics is collapsing. You saw how quickly serious accusations were met with outrage instead of answers. You heard international law and procedure used as shields against legitimate questions about sovereignty and accountability. And you felt the tension that appears every time power is challenged directly. This is a pattern. Difficult questions aren't confronted, they're condemned. Criticism isn't answered, it's moralized. And over time, that's how trust disappears. So, the real issue here isn't who raised their voice. It's whether leadership today is about defending the public or protecting itself. What do you think? Is this accountability or avoidance? And would you trust this kind of leadership to run the country?